Don't. I crushed the herbs anyway, pressed them against his chest. The black veins writhed. He screamed, one sharp sound, then smiled. Green light exploded from my palms. His wound sealed. The poison stopped spreading. This shouldn't have worked. I know, he said, too calm, eyes too sharp. Those were the last herbs I had, everything between me and starvation, and I just used them on someone who wasn't actually dying. If you love stories about omegas who refuse to play it safe, subscribe to Seraphina's romance stories so you don't miss what happens next.
The man was face down when I first got close. Big. Way too big to be a rogue living alone in the forest. Rogues got thin and desperate after a few months with no pack. This one looked like he'd been eating fine until recently. I should have walked away right then. But his back was rising and falling in these shallow breaths. And I'm a healer, which means I'm fundamentally broken in the part of my brain that handles self-preservation. The snow soaked through my boots as I knelt beside him. My fingers were already numb from gathering herbs all evening. The pack healer had refused to share supplies with me again. Said omegas didn't need medicine since we weren't worth the resources. My mother died waiting for medicine that never came. I rolled the stranger enough to see his chest. Found the wound immediately because blood was still seeping from it even in the cold. His shirt hung in tatters, revealing more injuries than whole skin. But it was the main wound that made me freeze. Not because of the blood, because of what was underneath. Thin black silver lines were spreading out from the gash like veins. Like roots. Moving slowly under his skin with each weak heartbeat. Oh no, I whispered. Silver poisoning. I'd only seen it once before. On a wolf they'd executed for killing pack children. He'd lasted 3 hours before his heart stopped. This man had maybe one. The stranger's eyes opened. Blue. Sharp. Way too focused for someone who should be unconscious. Walk away, he said. His voice was quiet but it carried weight. Like he was used to people obeying when he talked. I looked at my herb pouch. For plants. That was everything I had left. The pack wouldn't give me more until spring. And that was only if the alpha felt generous. Which he never did. You're dying, I said. I know. I can help. Don't. He tried to sit up and failed. Those herbs are worth more than I am. That's when I noticed other things about him. The way he held himself even while bleeding out. The quality of his boots still visible under the mud and blood. The calluses on his hands that looked like they came from sword work, not survival. You're not a rogue, I said. He didn't answer. Just kept watching me with those winter blue eyes. I thought about my mother. About all the times I watched the pack decide who deserved help and who didn't. About how many people died because someone decided their life wasn't worth the cost. I was so tired of that math. My hands moved before my brain could stop them. I crushed the herbs between my palms, mixing them with snow until they formed a thick green paste. All 4 plants. Everything I had. What are you doing? The stranger asked. There was something in his voice now. Not quite alarm. More like fascination. Something stupid. I pressed the paste directly against his wound. The silver veins reacted instantly. They writhed under his skin like living things, spreading faster. The man's whole body went rigid. His jaw clenched so hard I heard his teeth grind. But he didn't scream. Rogues screamed. Always. Silver poisoning felt like your blood was boiling from the inside out. I'd heard that scream before and it haunted me for weeks. This man just made one low, controlled sound through his teeth. Like he'd been trained to endure pain without showing weakness. Then light flared from my hands. Green light. Bright enough to illuminate the entire clearing. It poured from my palms into his chest, following the silver veins, pushing them back. What? I couldn't finish the sentence. I wasn't doing this. I didn't have this kind of power. Omega healers had basic abilities at best. We couldn't produce light. We couldn't fight silver poisoning. The stranger's eyes locked onto mine. And he smiled. Actually smiled. Through the pain, through the poison, through everything. Like this was exactly what he'd been waiting for. The light faded slowly. The silver veins had retreated but they hadn't disappeared. They pulsed faintly under his skin, following his heartbeat. Dark lines that shouldn't exist on someone who was supposed to be dead. This shouldn't have worked, I said. My voice sounded distant. Silver poisoning doesn't just stop. It doesn't retreat. You should be dead. I know. He was still watching me with that strange intensity. Thank you. Who are you? He didn't answer. Just closed his eyes like the conversation was over. But I felt it then. Something had changed between us. Not the mate bond. Something older. Heavier. Like I just tied myself to him without meaning to. The firelight from my cottage flickered in the distance. I needed to get him inside before the cold killed what the poison hadn't. Can you walk? I asked. His eyes opened again. Yes. It was a lie. I could see that immediately. But he tried anyway, and I caught him before he collapsed again. Lean on me, I said. My cottage isn't far. He obeyed. Which was wrong. Rogues didn't obey omegas. They barely acknowledged we existed. As we stumbled through the snow together, I kept thinking about that smile. About how he'd looked at me when the green light appeared. Like he'd known it would happen. Like he'd planned it. Getting him inside my cottage was like trying to move a mountain that occasionally pretended to help. He was conscious enough to walk but kept leaning more weight on me with each step. By the time we reached my door, I was practically dragging him. I'm not tall. He was enormous. The math didn't work. Don't pass out in the doorway, I muttered. I can't move you if you do. He made a sound that might have been a laugh. I got him to my bed because it was the only place big enough. My cottage had 3 rooms total: bedroom, kitchen, and the space where I dried herbs. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The pack let me keep it because nobody else wanted to live this close to the forest. The stranger collapsed onto the bed and didn't move again. I spent the rest of the night watching him breathe, making sure those silver veins didn't start spreading again. They pulsed faintly under his skin, following his heartbeat. Slower now. Contained. But still there. That was wrong. Silver poisoning didn't just stop. It consumed until there was nothing left. Morning came eventually. Gray winter light filtered through my window. The stranger's eyes opened before I realized he was awake. You're alive, I said, stating the obvious because I didn't know what else to say. Apparently. He tried to sit up and managed it this time. Slowly. His hand went to his chest, pressing against the bandages I'd wrapped around him during the night. Don't touch it, I warned. The wound is closed, but those veins are still active. He looked at me then. Really looked. Like he was trying to figure out a puzzle that didn't make sense. What's your name? He asked. Coralie. I'm Kairos. No last name. No pack affiliation. Just Kairos. You're not a rogue, I said again, because now in daylight it was even more obvious. What makes you say that? Rogues don't sit like that. I gestured at him. You're sitting like you're about to give orders. Like you expect people to listen when you talk. He smiled slightly. Maybe I was military once. Were you? Does it matter? I wanted to push. Demand real answers. But he was a stranger in my bed who should be dead. And I'd used my last herb saving him. Part of me didn't want to know what I'd actually brought into my home. Why were you in the forest? I asked instead. Someone wants me dead. I figured that part out from the silver blade. Smart. Who? I don't know. He said it too easily. Like he'd practiced the lie. I should have pressed harder. Should have demanded he leave. But there was something about the way he looked at me. Not grateful exactly, more like curious. Like I was the mystery, not him. You should rest, I said finally. That poison isn't gone. Just delayed. And you should eat. He nodded toward my kitchen. When was the last time you had a real meal? The question caught me off guard. What? You're thin. Your hands shake. That's not just from cold. I looked down at my hands. He was right. They were shaking. Omegas eat last, I said. That's pack law. His expression went cold. That's a stupid law. Well, I didn't write it. He was quiet for a moment. Then, tell me about your pack. Why? Because you saved my life. I want to know who you are. Nobody ever asked me that. Nobody cared who omegas were beyond what we could provide. So I told him. About my mother. About the pack healer who refused to help her. About how I learned healing on my own because watching people die felt worse than being alone. Kairos listened. actually listened, didn't interrupt, didn't offer useless platitudes, just absorbed every word like it mattered. Your pack alpha sounds incompetent, he said when I finished. He's typical. That's worse. I almost laughed. You talk like you know pack politics. I've seen a few packs in my time. Another non-answer. I was starting to notice he did that a lot. 2 nights later the fever came. I woke to the sound of Kairos breathing wrong. Too fast. Too shallow. When I touched his forehead, his skin was burning. No, 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 I whispered. The silver veins were glowing again. Brighter. Spreading. Delayed reaction. The poison was fighting back. Kairos. I shook his shoulder. Stay with me. His eyes opened but they weren't focused. Fever bright and distant. Coralie. He said my name like a question. Then he reached for me. Not roughly. Instinctively. Like his body knew I could help even when his mind couldn't process it. His hand caught my wrist and pulled me closer. What are you doing? I tried to pull back. He didn't let go. Instead he pressed his forehead against my shoulder. His breath came in harsh gasps against my neck. His teeth grazed my skin. Not a bite. Just contact. But the moment it happened everything changed. Green light exploded from my hands. Brighter than before. It poured into him without me willing it, following the silver veins, burning them back. But this time something answered. His chest pulsed with silver gold light. It met my green magic halfway, and they twisted together like 2 rivers merging into one. Power crashed through me. Ancient. Heavy. Wrong. This wasn't healing magic. This was something older. The light faded slowly. Kairos collapsed back against the bed, unconscious but breathing normally. The silver veins had retreated again, fainter than before. My hands were still glowing faintly. That had never happened before. Ever. Kairos's eyes opened one last time before he passed out completely. They found mine in the darkness. What are you? He whispered. Then he was gone. Asleep or unconscious I couldn't tell. I sat there staring at my glowing hands. At the place where his teeth had touched my skin. It didn't hurt. But it felt marked somehow. Changed. My magic had never done this. Never responded to someone else's power. Never glowed on its own. Omegas didn't have power like this. So what was happening to me? By the 3rd day Kairos could stand. That was my first clue something was seriously wrong. Silver poisoning didn't heal in 3 days. Didn't heal at all. You either died or you lived as a cripple. Your body permanently damaged by the poison's path through your system. Kairos did neither. I watched him get out of bed that morning like he'd merely had a bad cold. He moved carefully, testing his strength, but there was no weakness in his posture. No trembling. No pain. You shouldn't be able to do that, I said from the doorway. He looked at me. Do what? Walk. Stand. Breathe without effort. I crossed my arms. 3 days ago you were dying. Now you look like you could run 5 miles. I heal fast. Nobody heals that fast. Not from silver. He smiled slightly, like I'd said something amusing. Apparently I do. That's when I noticed his hands. He was gripping the bedpost and the wood was splintering under his fingers. Not cracking. Splintering. Like it was made of dried leaves. How strong are you? I asked quietly. Strong enough. That's not an answer. It's the only one I'm giving. I should have been afraid. Any sensible person would have been. But mostly I was angry. Angry that I wasted my last herbs on someone who apparently didn't need them. Angry that he'd let me believe he was helpless. Angry that I'd felt sorry for him. You lied, I said. About what? Everything. You're not a rogue. You're not dying. You're not. I gestured at him. Whatever you are, you're not what you pretended to be. Kairos was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked toward me. Not threatening. Just direct. He stopped a few feet away and I had to tilt my head back to look at him. The poison was real, he said. The wound was real. The danger was real. But I knew I wouldn't die from it. My hands clenched into fists. Then why pretend? Because someone very powerful wants me dead. And I needed to disappear. So you let an Omega waste her last herbs on you? You let me think I was making a life or death choice when you were never actually in danger. You were making a life or death choice. His voice was quiet but firm. Just not the one you thought. What's that supposed to mean? He didn't answer. Just watched me with those winter blue eyes that saw too much. Omega healers are invisible, he said finally. No one watches them. No one cares what they do or who they help. You were the perfect cover. The words hit me like a slap. Cover. Yes. You used me. Yes. At least he was honest about it now. That didn't make it hurt less. Get out, I said. Coralie. I said get out. You're healed. You're strong. You don't need me anymore. So leave. He didn't move. I can't. Why not? Because they're coming. I heard them before I saw them. Wolves in the forest. Multiple wolves. Moving through the trees in formation like they were hunting something. My blood went cold. That's a pack hunt. Yes. They found you. No. Kairos moved to the window, his whole body language changing. Shoulders back. Spine straight. He looked like a different person. They found me days ago. Then why? They've been waiting for orders. The wolves emerged from the tree line. 6 of them. 7. More. They circled my cottage in perfect formation, moving like trained soldiers rather than wild animals. I grabbed the knife from my kitchen counter. It was small and probably useless, but it was all I had. They're going to attack, I whispered. No, they're not. How do you know? Kairos didn't answer. He just opened my door and walked outside. I followed because I'm an idiot who apparently learned nothing from the last few days. The wolves had stopped circling. They stood in a loose semicircle around my cottage, all of them focused on Kairos. They're going to kill you, I said. Watch. One of the wolves, a massive gray with scars across his muzzle, stepped forward. He locked eyes with Kairos for a long moment. Then he bowed his head. Not in submission. In respect. The other wolves followed. One by one they lowered their heads. Some dropped to their bellies entirely, exposing their throats in the ultimate gesture of deference. They were showing loyalty. To him. My knife clattered to the ground. What? Go back inside, Coralie. No. Tell me what's happening. You don't want to know. Tell me anyway. Kairos turned to face me. His eyes were glowing now. Not reflecting light. Actually glowing silver bright like moonlight on steel. No wolf had eyes like that. No rogue had eyes like that. You lied about everything, I said. My voice sounded distant. Not everything. The danger was real. Who are you? He was quiet for too long. Then. Someone who shouldn't have involved you. That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters. The wolves were still waiting. Patient. Disciplined. Like soldiers awaiting commands from their general. Like guards protecting their king. The thought hit me so hard I actually stepped back. No, I whispered. Kairos's expression didn't change. You're not, you can't be. You were never meant to know, he said quietly. That was the point. Of what? Of lying to me? Of letting me waste everything I had on someone who didn't need it? Of keeping you safe? Safe from what? From me. The wolves were moving now, tightening their circle. Not threatening. Protective. They're guarding you, I said. Yes. Because you're someone important. Yes. How important? He didn't answer. Just looked at me with those glowing eyes that held too much power for any ordinary wolf. I thought about everything I'd seen. The way he held himself. The way he spoke. The discipline. The control. The strength that shouldn't exist. The poison that was meant to kill him publicly but didn't quite work. Someone tried to execute you, I said slowly. With silver. In public view. That's not how you kill a rogue. That's how you kill. I couldn't finish the sentence. Kairos watched me put the pieces together. He didn't confirm. Didn't deny. Just waited. You let me save you, I whispered. You let me use my last herbs. You let me think I was making a choice when you already knew what would happen. Yes. Why? Because I needed to know something. What? If mercy still existed. If there were still wolves in my territory capable of choosing compassion over survival. His territory. The words hung in the air between us. You're testing your own people, I said. You wanted to see if an Omega would save a stranger. I wanted to see if you would save a stranger. Why me specifically? Because you're different. I'm not different. I'm just an Omega who couldn't walk away from someone dying. Exactly. He took a step closer. Do you understand how rare that is? How many wolves would have left me there? How many would have taken my belongings and walked away? Most of them, I admitted. All of them, he corrected. Except you. The wolves were still waiting. Patient. Loyal. Completely focused on him. I looked at Kairos, really looked at him, and saw what I should have seen from the beginning. The way he commanded space without trying. The way, even wounded and fevered, he'd held authority in his voice. The way those silver veins had pulsed under his skin, not like poison, but like power contained. I didn't save a rogue, I said quietly. No. I saved someone who could have saved himself. Eventually. The poison was real. It would have taken days to fight through it alone. But you would have survived. Yes. I should have felt betrayed. Should have been furious. But mostly I felt exhausted. What happens now? I asked. Now you go back inside. Forget you ever met me. Live your life. Just like that. Just like that. He turned to walk away. The wolves shifted to follow him. Like a king leaving with his guard. Wait. The word came out before I could stop it. Kairos paused. What are you? I asked. Monster or ruler? He looked back at me over his shoulder. Those silver eyes glowing in the darkness. I'm both, he said. And you were never supposed to know which. Then he was gone. Disappeared into the forest with his wolves following like shadows. I stood in front of my cottage for a long time after they left. My hands were still glowing faintly green. That mark on my skin where his teeth had grazed me burned like a brand. He'd said I could go back to my life. But something had changed. Something had awakened between us that night when the fever came. Something old and powerful that didn't care about lies or choices or what we were supposed to be. I touched the mark on my skin. It pulsed once. Like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. He was gone by morning. I knew before I even looked outside. The forest felt empty in a way it hadn't before. Like something vital had been removed and now there was just hollow space where he'd been. I told myself I was relieved. Told myself this was better. Life could go back to normal now. I was lying to myself and I knew it. The only thing he'd left behind was a mark on a tree near my cottage. Carved deep into the bark with something sharp. A crest I'd never seen before. A wolf's head surrounded by intricate knotwork with a crown above it. Steelheart. I'd heard that name whispered in pack stories. The Alpha King who ruled the northern territories with absolute authority. The one who'd unified dozens of warring packs under one law. The one everyone feared. I traced the carving with my fingers and felt nothing. No answers. No closure. Just a symbol that confirmed what I'd already figured out. I'd sheltered a king. And he'd left without saying goodbye. The changes started 3 days after he left. Small things at first. I could hear conversations from the village that should have been too far away. Could smell the bakery from a mile out when normally I'd need to be at the door. My senses were sharpening. Like I was becoming more wolf than Omega. That wasn't how it worked. Omega stayed Omega. We didn't just develop alpha senses overnight. But it wasn't just my senses. The dreams came every night. I'd see a throne room carved from black stone. Wolves bowing before a figure I couldn't quite see. Battlefields. Treaties signed in blood. A crown that felt heavier than iron. And through it all I'd feel him. Kairos. Like he was there in the dreams with me even though I couldn't find him. I'd wake up gasping, my skin burning where his teeth had grazed my neck. The mark wasn't visible. No scar. No bruise. But I could feel it constantly. A brand that pulsed in time with my heartbeat. Sometimes it felt like 2 heartbeats. Mine and someone else's. I was changing and I didn't understand why. The pack noticed within a week. I was gathering water from the well when Beta Marcus blocked my path. He was a large man with a cruel smile and ambitions bigger than his competence. Coralie, he said. Not a greeting. An accusation. Marcus. I tried to step around him. He moved to block me again. Where is he? Where is who? Don't play stupid. The rogue. The one you brought to your cottage. My blood went cold. He left. Days ago. Where did he go? I don't know. You're lying. I'm not. He disappeared into the forest. I haven't seen him since. Marcus stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell the aggression rolling off him. Do you know what the penalty is for harboring enemies of the pack? He wasn't an enemy. He was injured. He was a stranger. You brought him into pack territory without permission. That's treason. That's not. Alpha wants to see you. Now. He grabbed my arm before I could protest. His grip was tight enough to bruise. I could have fought. Should have fought. But Omegas who fought Betas ended up broken. So I let him drag me. The pack square was already full when we arrived. Everyone had gathered. All 40 members of our pathetic little pack. Standing in a circle around the Alpha's platform. The same platform where they announced punishments and settled disputes. Where they made examples of people who broke the rules. Alpha Garrett stood at the center. He was older now, his hair more gray than black, but he still carried himself like he owned everyone in his territory. Technically he did. Coralie, he said as Marcus shoved me forward. Thank you for joining us. Like I'd had a choice. You've been accused of treason, Garrett continued. His voice carried across the square, making sure everyone heard. Harboring a dangerous rogue. Refusing to report his presence. Conspiring against pack interests. I didn't conspire against anyone, I said. I healed an injured man. That's what healers do. You healed a stranger without permission. He was dying. So you say. But witnesses report seeing wolves near your cottage. Multiple wolves. Moving in formation like trained soldiers. My stomach dropped. Someone had been watching. Those weren't my wolves, I said. Then whose were they? I couldn't answer that. Couldn't tell them the truth without revealing everything. She won't talk, Marcus said. She's protecting him. I'm not protecting anyone. I don't know where he is. Liar! Someone shouted from the crowd. Others joined in. Calling me traitor. Calling me spy. The pack I'd lived with my entire life turning hostile in seconds. Garrett raised his hand for silence. You will tell us who he was. Where he went. And who sent him? Nobody sent him. He was just. Nobody just appears in our territory with silver poisoning, Garrett interrupted. That's an execution wound. A political assassination. Someone wanted him dead and you interfered. I saved his life. You chose a stranger over your pack. I chose compassion over cruelty. The words came out sharper than I intended. The crowd muttered angrily. Garrett's expression hardened. You will tell me everything. Or you will be punished. I've told you everything I know. Then you're useless to us. He nodded to Marcus. The beta stepped forward, reaching for me. That's when I felt it. The mark on my neck burned suddenly. Hot enough to make me gasp. My knees almost buckled from the intensity. What's wrong with her? Someone asked. She's faking, Marcus said. But I wasn't faking. The burning spread from my neck through my entire body. My senses exploded outward. I could hear everything, smell everything, feel everything within a mile radius. And I felt him. Kairos. Close. Getting closer. The forest went silent. Not gradually. Instantly. Every bird stopped singing. Every creature stopped moving. Like the world was holding its breath. What's happening? Garrett demanded. Then the wolves started howling. Not our pack wolves. Wolves from the forest. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Their voices rose in unison, creating a sound I'd never heard before. Not a hunt call. Not a territorial warning. A herald. Someone important was coming. The ground trembled. Subtle at first, then stronger. Like something massive was approaching. The pack members looked around nervously. Some backed away from the platform. Others shifted into fighting stances. Hold your positions, Garrett commanded. But his voice wavered. The trembling grew stronger. Dust rose from the ground. The platform shook beneath our feet. Marcus released my arm. What did you do? Nothing, I whispered. I didn't do anything. But that wasn't true. I'd healed him. I'd let him touch me. I'd let that bond form between us whether I understood it or not. And now he was coming back. The mark on my neck burned brighter. My vision blurred with green light. I could see him in my mind now, walking through the forest with absolute purpose. Wolves flanking him on all sides. Power rolling off him like a physical force. Coralie, Garrett grabbed my shoulder. What did you bring into my territory? I looked at him. At his fear. At the pack that had spent my entire life making me feel worthless. The truth, I said quietly. The forest edge exploded with movement. Wolves poured out of the trees. Not 5 or 10. Dozens. Moving in perfect formation. Their eyes glowed in the afternoon light, silver, gold, amber. Colors that shouldn't exist. Elite warriors. Every single one of them. The pack scattered immediately. Some shifted. Others ran. A few stood frozen in terror. And then he appeared. Cairo's Steelheart stepped into the square like he owned it. Because he did. He owned this territory. This pack. Everything and everyone in it. He wore black armor now. Formal. Ceremonial. The Steelheart crest emblazoned across his chest. His eyes glowed that impossible silver bright. He looked nothing like the dying rogue I'd found in the snow. He looked like a king. Every wolf in the square dropped to their knees. Instinct. Survival. When an alpha king commands your territory, you bow or you die. Garrett fell. Marcus fell. Everyone fell. Everyone except me. I couldn't move. Could barely breathe. The bond between us was screaming now. Pulling me toward him with a force I couldn't resist. Kairos' eyes found mine across the square. And the world narrowed to just us. Release her, he commanded. His voice wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. Power carried it across the square like thunder. Marcus scrambled backward. Your Majesty, we didn't know. Release her. Someone unlocked the chains I hadn't realized they'd put on me. When had that happened? Had I been that lost in the bond that I didn't notice? Kairos crossed the distance between us in 4 strides. He moved like violence barely contained. Like every step was a choice not to destroy everything in his path. He stopped in front of me. Close enough to touch. Are you hurt? He asked quietly. Just for me. No. Did they touch you? Marcus grabbed my arm. That's all. His jaw clenched. He glanced at Marcus with an expression that promised consequences. Then he looked back at me. Those silver eyes holding mine with an intensity that made everything else disappear. I told you to forget me, he said. I tried. I told you to go back to your life. I tried that too. And it didn't work. His hand came up slowly, carefully. He touched the place on my neck where his teeth had grazed me, the mark that burned constantly. The moment his skin made contact, green light flared between us, bright enough that the entire pack gasped. I know, Kairos said quietly. I feel it too. What is this? I whispered. A bond that shouldn't exist. Between an Alpha King and an Omega healer who was brave enough to save him when no one else would. You used me. Yes. You lied to me. Yes. And now you're here because you're mine, he said simply. And I don't leave what's mine in danger. You're mine, Kairos said. And the entire pack heard it. Not a question. Not a request. A declaration that carried the weight of absolute authority. I should have argued. Should have told him he didn't get to decide that. But the bond between us was screaming yes, pulling me toward him like gravity. I don't belong to anyone, I said anyway. 'Cause I needed to say it. I know. His thumb brushed the mark on my neck. That's why I'm asking. That didn't sound like asking. I'm not good at asking. Clearly. Someone in the crowd made a strangled sound. Probably because they'd never heard anyone talk to an Alpha King like this and expected me to die for it. Kairos smiled slightly. Will you come with me? Where? Home. This is my home. No. His voice went cold as he looked at the pack around us. This is where you've been surviving. There's a difference. He wasn't wrong. But admitting it felt like betraying every year I'd spent here. Garrett was still on his knees, his face white with terror. Your Majesty, we didn't know. If we'd known she was yours. She wasn't mine when you threatened her, Kairos interrupted. She was just an Omega. And you were going to punish her for showing mercy. He turned his gaze to Marcus. You grabbed her. Marcus went even paler. I didn't know. You knew she was an Omega. You knew she was defenseless. That's all you needed to know to treat her with respect. Kairos's eyes flashed silver. Instead you dragged her before your pack and threatened her with punishment for the crime of saving a life. We thought she was. I don't care what you thought. The words landed like hammer blows. Marcus flinched. Kairos looked at me again. His expression softened. Come. He held out his hand. I stared at it. At the choice he was offering me. Stay here with the pack that had spent my life making me feel worthless. Or go with the king who'd lied to me but was offering something that looked almost like freedom. Not much of a choice really. I took his hand. The moment our hands touched, the bond ignited fully. Not slowly. Not gently. Crashed through both of us like lightning. Green light exploded from my skin. Silver gold light answered from his. They twisted together, burning brighter and brighter until I couldn't see anything else. I felt everything. His heartbeat matching mine. His power flooding through me. His loneliness, buried so deep he'd almost forgotten it existed. His desperate need to find one person in his entire kingdom who would choose mercy over survival. And I felt the moment he'd seen me in that forest. The moment he'd decided to test me. The moment he'd realized I was going to save him anyway. The light faded slowly. When I could see again, every wolf in the square was staring at us. She's bonded to him, someone whispered. An Omega and the Alpha King. That's impossible. She's not just an Omega anymore, Kairos said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. She's my mate. My queen. And anyone who threatens her threatens me. The pack fell silent. Queen. He just declared me queen in front of 40 witnesses. You can't just, I started. I can. I did. He pulled me closer. Close enough that I could feel the heat rolling off him. Unless you don't want it. Want what? To be queen? I don't even know how to be queen. You saved a dying stranger with your last resources. You chose compassion when everyone else would have chosen survival. You already know everything important. That's not. Coralie. He said my name like a prayer. I'm asking. Will you come with me? I looked at the pack. At Garrett still kneeling. At Marcus terrified. At the people who'd spent my entire life treating me like I was disposable. Then I looked at Kairos. At the king who'd tested me and lied to me but was now offering me a choice. Yes, I said. His smile was brief but genuine. Good. He turned to address the pack one final time. Coralie is under my protection now. If anyone touches her, threatens her or speaks against her, they answer to me personally. He paused. I suggest you find a new alpha. This one has failed you. Garrett's head snapped up. Your Majesty. You ruled through fear and neglect. You let your people starve while you hoarded resources. You punished mercy and rewarded cruelty. Kairos's voice was cold. I'll be sending someone to oversee this pack's reorganization. Until then, you follow pack law. All of it. Including the parts about protecting Omegas. He didn't wait for a response. Just swept me up into his arms like I weighed nothing and started walking. The elite wolves followed. Silent. Disciplined. Creating a protective circle around us. I can walk, I said. I know. Then put me down. No. Why not? Because I've been trying not to touch you for a week, and I'm done pretending I don't want to. Oh. Drop a comment if you need a minute to process that, because the private conversation they're about to have is going to wreck you. The Steelheart stronghold was carved into a mountain. Literally. Someone had taken an entire mountainside and hollowed it out into a fortress. Stone halls lit by torches. Tapestries showing centuries of pack history. Weapons mounted on walls. Everything built for strength and permanence. Kairos brought me to a room at the highest point. Private chambers that overlooked the entire northern forest. This is where I live, he said. It's very stone. Is that a complaint? An observation? He smiled slightly. Then the smile faded. I need to tell you something. More lies. The truth this time. All of it. I sat on the edge of his bed because my legs were shaking. Go ahead. He paced. Actually paced. The composed king looking uncertain for the first time since I'd met him. I've ruled for 12 years, he said. I unified the northern territories through war and treaty. I established laws, created order, made the pact stronger. Sounds successful. It was. But somewhere in those 12 years I forgot why I started. Forgot the difference between ruling and controlling. He stopped pacing and looked at me. I needed to know if mercy still existed in my lands. If wolves were still capable of choosing compassion when it cost them everything. So you tested me. Yes. You let me think you were dying. The poison was real. It would have taken days to fight through it alone. Days I didn't have while enemies were hunting me. But you knew I'd save you. No. He shook his head. I hoped. I didn't know. You could have walked away. 99 wolves out of 100 would have. Why did it matter? Why did you need to know? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, because I was lost. I'd become the thing I fought against. A ruler who saw people as resources instead of lives. I needed to know if I'd destroyed all the mercy in my kingdom, or if there was still hope. And you saved me. Not because you knew who I was. Not because you wanted reward or recognition. You saved me because you couldn't walk past suffering. That's what healers do. No. His voice was firm. That's what you do. That's who you are. And I used you for it. Used your compassion. Used your isolation. Used everything about you to hide. Yes, I said. You did. I'm sorry. The words hung between us. An Alpha King apologizing to an Omega. That didn't happen. Kings didn't apologize. They commanded and expected obedience. But Cairo stood there looking at me like he'd give anything to take back the deception. You were lonely, I said quietly. He flinched. What? I felt it. When the bond formed. You were lonely. You've spent 12 years surrounded by wolves who fear you, obey you, serve you. But nobody sees you. That's true. You tested me because you needed to know if anyone in your entire kingdom would choose mercy. But really you were asking if anyone would choose you. Not the king. Not the power. Just you. He closed his eyes. Yes. I stood. Crossed the room to him. Put my hand on his chest where those silver veins had spread. I choose you, I said. His eyes opened. Silver bright and unguarded. Not because you're a king. Not because of the bond. Because you came back for me when you didn't have to. Because you kneeled to an Omega in front of your warriors. Because you saw mercy as strength instead of weakness. Coralie. I'm not finished. I pressed my hand harder against his chest. You lied to me. Used me. Tested me. And I'm still furious about it. I know. But I also know what loneliness looks like. I know what it's like to be surrounded by people who only see what you can give them, never who you are. You deserved better than my test. Yes, I did. I smiled slightly. But you passed mine. What test? You came back. When you could have left me there to face the pack alone, you came back. That's how I know you're not just a king playing games. You actually care. His hand came up to cover mine. I do. Then prove it. How? Rule better. Be the king you wanted to find. Create a kingdom where Omegas don't have to choose between survival and mercy. Where strength doesn't mean cruelty. And you'll be there? Beside me. Yes. The word came out easier than I expected. He pulled me closer. Close enough that I could feel his heartbeat against my palm. I don't know how to be a king and a mate. I don't know how to share power. I don't know how to. Neither do I. We'll figure it out. You're supposed to be more worried about this. I used my last herbs on a dying stranger. I'm not great at self-preservation. He laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was rusty like he didn't do it often. Then he kissed me. Not demanding. Not claiming. Asking. I answered. The bond flared between us. Green light and silver gold merging completely this time. I felt his power flooding into me. Felt my healing magic rising to meet it. They twisted together, creating something new. Something that belonged to both of us. When we broke apart, my hands were glowing steady green. His eyes were pure silver. Queen Healer, he murmured. The bond made you more. Made us both more, I corrected. He rested his forehead against mine. The fierce Alpha King, bowing his head to the Omega who'd saved him when no one else would. I'll spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth your mercy, he said quietly. You already have. I touched his face. You came back. Subscribe to Seraphina's romance stories and comment Queen Coralie if you loved this ending. Want more stories about Omegas who refuse to play it safe and alphas who are strong enough to kneel? Hit that subscribe button and join us for the next story. Outside the window, wolves howled their approval. The Northern Territories celebrating their new queen. The Omega who'd chosen mercy over survival. The healer who'd saved her king without knowing who he was. And the Alpha King who'd finally found someone brave enough to choose him not for his power, but despite it. We'd figure out the rest together.
You made it to the end. Thank you. Seriously. I know there are a million stories you could be watching right now, but you chose to spend your time with Coralie and Kairos. That means everything to us. Now, I need to ask you for something. A favor. A real one. The algorithm hasn't been pushing our videos the way we need it to. We're a small team here at Seraphina's Romance Stories, pouring our hearts into these stories every single day. But without your help, these videos don't reach the people who need them. So I'm begging you, if you truly enjoyed this story, if Coralie's courage moved you, if Kairos' redemption made you feel something, please help us. Drop a comment, anything, tell us what you thought. Like this video, share it with your friends, your family, your loved ones, post it on your WhatsApp status, share it on your socials. Tell the algorithm that this story mattered to you. That's why we pause sometimes to ask for subscriptions and comments during the video, not because we're pushy, but because it's the only way the algorithm knows to push this story to others who love it as much as you did. We need you, truly. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring about stories that matter. And may you find the same courage Coralie had, to choose compassion even when it costs you everything. God bless you.